I want you to picture something with me. And fair warning, we are starting this deep dive right in the deep end. The source material sets a scene right away, and honestly, it made my skin crawl a little bit.
It's intense, yeah. It's definitely not a warm and fuzzy opening.
No. Okay, so you're lying in a dark room. It's totally silent. No phone, no screens, no Netflix humming in the background.
Nothing.
It's just you, the sheets, and the ceiling. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, this intrusive thought just pushes its way in. One day, I will not exist.
The ultimate intrusive thought.
Yeah. And it's not news, it's not a philosophy textbook, it's not about someone else, it is about you. The timeline ending. The source describes how fast that thought just hits, but, more importantly, how fast we scramble to shove it away.
Instantly.
We grab the phone, we blast music, we start mentally reorganizing the pantry, literally anything to break that silence.
And that reaction is so universal, and I think the sources make a really vital distinction here right off the bat, because I don't want people listening to feel, guilty about that. That desperate need to grab the phone. That isn't cowardice. It's not some character flaw. It's a biological reaction to feeling completely off balance.
Yeah.
It's the brain realizing it's staring at a problem it literally cannot solve.
Which brings us to the core conflict of today's deep dive. Because while 99% of us run from that thought, I know I certainly do.
Oh, absolutely.
There's this group of people, the Stoics folks like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, who seem to do the exact opposite. They invite the thought in, they pull up a chair for it.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that sounds a little masochistic to me. Why would anyone voluntarily hang out with that level of dread?
It does sound counterintuitive, but that's the mission today. We're looking at a massive, arguably the massive question: how can someone possibly be calm in the face of death? Is it about being cold and emotionless?
Like a robot.
Exactly. Is it repression, or is there some psychological mechanism at play here that actually improves life right now on a random Tuesday?
I love that framing, because usually when we hear Stoic, we think Spock. We think, no emotions. But this deep dive argues it's actually about agency. So we're going to unpack the psychology of that panic, look at how modern society basically gaslights us into ignoring death, and then hit some specific actionable strategies.
Let's do it.
But let's start with the panic, because when I read that description in the source, the thin layer of cold, I felt that.
That thin layer of cold, it's such a specific, relatable description.
It is, but why does it happen? If death is natural, why does my body react like there's a tiger in the room?
Because biologically, your brain, it doesn't really know the difference. Your brain is a machine designed for one thing, and that's survival. A tiger jumps out, you run.
Right.
Fire, you move. The brain is an expert at identifying threats and neutralizing them, but death isn't a tiger. You can't learn from it, you can't negotiate with it, and you can't fix it.
And that's the problem, isn't it? The source points out that humans are, at our core, control freaks. We fear what we can't control. And this is the ultimate lack of control.
Precisely. But this is where Epictetus comes in and just flips the table. He had this brilliant, kind of frustrating insight. It is not the event that scares us, but our judgment of the event.
Okay, I had to play devil's advocate here. That sounds great on a poster, but death is a pretty big event. It's the end of everything.
Yeah.
It feels like the event should scare us, regardless of our judgment.
I get that, of course.
It's not like getting a bad haircut.
No, I totally get that. It feels physical. But think about it this way. Death hasn't happened to you yet. You're alive right now listening to this. So the panic you feel sitting in that dark room, that isn't death. That is the anticipation of death. The suffering comes from the judgment that I should be able to control this, colliding with the reality that I can't.
So the Stoics aren't trying to delete death. They know they can't. They're trying to edit the story we tell ourselves about it.
They're adjusting the lens, and here's where it gets deeper and honestly a bit more existential. The source argues that we aren't just afraid of our biological functions stopping.
Right. Not just the hard stuff.
No. We're afraid of the dissolution of the self.
Losing the main character.
Exactly. We're scared of losing the story. We spend our whole lives building this character called I. My memories, my relationships, my jokes, my career, my quirks. And death implies that the character just dissolves.
Gone.
Seneca had a great line about this. He said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality. We sit there imagining everything we're going to lose, the future chapters we won't get to write, rather than asking if the story we're currently writing is one we're actually proud of."
Wow, that's a huge shift. Moving from I'm scared to lose my stuff to is my stuff worth keeping?
It is, but, and this is a but, It is incredibly hard to have that realization in the modern world. The entire environment is stacked against us.
This is that section on the societal blindfold. And I found this fascinating because I never really thought about how hidden death is now, compared to the past.
Oh, it's night and day. The source draws this huge contrast between the ancient world and now. Back in Marcus Aurelius' time, death was domestic. It was in the living room.
You couldn't avoid it?
No. You saw people age, you saw them get sick, you saw them take their last breath at home. It was part of the daily rhythm of life. Today, it's all specialized. It happens in hospitals and ICUs, behind closed doors. We get a text message or, see a Facebook post.
It's sanitized. We've outsourced the end of life to professionals.
Completely sanitized. And because we don't see it, we can pretend it's not there. The source connects this to our modern obsession with growth. I mean, think about it. Economic growth, technological growth, personal branding, everything is up and to the right.
Infinite expansion, which is great for the stock market, but maybe not for our psychology.
Exactly. Our entire culture is built on the idea of more. But death is the ultimate limit. It's the ultimate stop. So death basically contradicts the entire modern narrative. If you're making a 10-year plan or a 20-year project, you are implicitly assuming you will be there to see it.
You have to assume you're immortal just to function in a corporate job.
You do. And the source mentions Martin Heidegger here, calling humans beings towards death. Now, I have to say, that sounds incredibly morbid for a dinner party conversation.
Yeah. Pass the salt, also you're a being towards death.
Right. And it does sound gloomy, but Heidegger wasn't trying to be an emo teenager. His point was that limits define choices. I mean, think about it in terms of a budget. If you have an infinite budget, unlimited money, do you ever have to make a hard choice about what to buy?
No, you just buy everything. Nothing has value because you can have it all.
Exactly. Scarcity creates value. So if you have infinite time, you don't have to prioritize. You can do everything eventually. You can learn French, write that novel, fix your relationship with your dad. Later.
There's always later.
Always later. But because we push death away and pretend our time is infinite, we clog our lives.
You clog them with nonsense.
We do. We fill the schedule with things that don't matter because we think, I'll get to the important stuff later. The source quotes Ernest Becker, who wrote The Denial of Death. He argued that civilization is basically a machine designed to help us forget death through busyness. We create noise so we don't have to hear the silence.
That explains why that dark room at the beginning is so terrifying. It strips away all the noise, the machine stops, and suddenly you have to look at the scarcity.
And when the machine stops, you hit what the source calls the doctor moment.
Yeah. This part of the reading really hit me. The moment theory becomes reality. You get a diagnosis or there's a close call on the highway, and suddenly everyone dies becomes I will die. And likely sooner than I planned.
The source calls this the great filtering. When that timeline shortens, the filter just tightens. Suddenly, petty jealousy, gone. Comparisons on social media, irrelevant. Meaningless arguments about who forgot to take out the trash, they just fall away.
It's interesting, though, the source notes that you don't necessarily become a saint.
No, not at all.
You don't suddenly become a perfect person just because you had a scare. You don't start floating on a cloud.
No, you don't become a monk. But you realize you just don't have the budget to feed small emotions anymore. You stop feeding the beast of triviality. This connects right back to Seneca's paradox. He who learns how to die learns how to live.
It sounds so profound.
It does, but it's actually practical. Accepting the limit forces you to choose what is actually worth keeping in your life.
There's this great line in the source that says, much of the fear of death is actually a fear of regret.
That's the kicker. That is the secret sauce of this whole deep dive. We aren't just scared of the end. We're scared that we lived for other people. We're scared of self-betrayal. The Stoics argue that if you are truly honest with yourself, if you are living without betraying your own values, death becomes just punctuation.
Punctuation. I like that. It ends the sentence, but it doesn't make the sentence meaningless.
Right, it's not a confession of failure. It's just the period at the end.
Let's look at the real-world examples the source provides, because I think this grounds the philosophy. We have example 1, the terminal diagnosis. And I appreciate that the source is realistic here. It's not like the person gets the news and immediately puts on a toga and starts quoting philosophy.
No, absolutely not. The initial reaction is shock. It's fear. It's why me? But then, for many people, not all, but many, a shift happens. They start speaking more honestly, they cut out the BS, they prioritize real time with family over polite time with acquaintances.
They're still afraid, though.
Yes, and that's crucial. They are afraid. But the fear stops dictating their schedule. They reclaim their agency. They decide how the last chapter reads.
Then there's example 2, the sudden loss. A survivor realizes that the fight they had about trivial matters, maybe money or chores, was completely meaningless in the grand scheme.
And here's the stoic challenge to you listening right now. Do we have to wait for the tragedy to get that perspective? Do we have to wait for the car crash or the diagnosis to realize that fighting about the dishes is a waste of life?
That's the billion-dollar question. Can you hack your brain to get the clarity before the disaster strikes? Because honestly, waiting for disaster seems like a terrible strategy.
That is the stoic goal. Marcus Aurelius used to remind himself that everyone around him was finite. Not to be distant or cold, but to be gentler. If you know this might be the last time you speak to someone, are you really going to spend that time proving you're right about a political opinion?
Probably not. But let's be real, most of us hopefully aren't facing a terminal diagnosis today. So how do we practice this without just being bummed out all the time?
Right, yeah.
Because if I walk around thinking everyone is going to die, I feel like I just stay in bed.
The source outlines 4 strategies. Let's walk through them. Strategy 1 is the classic dichotomy of control.
Epictetus 101. You have to distinguish between the event, which is uncontrollable, and your attitude, which is controllable.
But how do you apply that to death? It feels too big for that framework. Well, you focus on the role you're playing right now. You can't control when the movie ends. The director cuts the scene when he cuts the scene. But you can control how you play your role in the current frame. If you focus on the cut, on the ending, you panic. If you focus on the performance, on the action right now, you have agency.
Okay, I can see that. It pulls the focus back to the present. Strategy 2 is intentional thought. The source compares thinking about death to eyes adjusting to the dark.
I love this analogy. If you walk from bright sunlight into a dark cave, you're blind. You stumble, you panic. But if you sit there for a while, your eyes adjust. You can start to see the shapes. You can navigate.
So avoidance keeps us blind.
Exactly. If you only think about mortality once every 10 years, it's terrifying. It's a stranger breaking into your house. If you do it a little bit every day, just a small reminder, memento mori. It stops being a stranger. It becomes part of the furniture. It becomes the background that makes the foreground colors pop.
Strategy 3 is the self-betrayal check. And I have to say, this felt like the heaviest one, the most actionable, but also the scariest.
It is scary. It's the one I try to use, and I struggle with it. You ask yourself, if I died tomorrow, would I be okay with how I live today? And be careful, this isn't about, did I climb Everest today? It's not about achievement.
Because most days are just doing laundry and answering emails. If the bar is, did I achieve greatness, we all fail.
Exactly. It's not, did I save the world? It's, did I betray myself? Did I fake my way through the day? Did I say yes to a boss when I meant no? Did I stay in a relationship out of convenience? Did I pretend to be someone I'm not? If you live true to your values, death isn't catching you in a lie.
It's about integrity. If you're caught mid-sentence, at least it was an honest sentence.
Precisely. It turns death from a judge into a witness. It's just seeing what you were doing. If what you were doing was honest, you have nothing to fear.
That's actually really comforting in a tough way. And finally, strategy 4, accepting nature. This seems to be the one Marcus Aurelius leaned on the most.
It was his anchor. He reframed death not as a punishment or a personal injustice or some bug in the code. He saw it as a natural process, just like being born or digesting food or growing up.
It's hard to feel victimized by something that is literally the definition of nature, but we still do. We feel like it's unfair.
We do, but the Stoic view is that treating death as an injustice is like treating gravity as an injustice. It's just physics. It doesn't take away the sadness. We have to be clear on that. Stoicism isn't about not feeling sad, but it takes away the resentment. You stop screaming, why is this happening to me? And start understanding that it's just what happens.
So putting this all together, the source emphasizes that Stoics aren't fearless superheroes. They're not unfeeling statues.
No, they feel pain, they feel loss. If a Stoic loses a friend, they grieve. But they refuse to add panic to the pain. They refuse to let the fear of the future ruin the present moment.
It's the shift from running away to just standing still.
Standing still and looking at it. The source uses this beautiful final image. Death isn't a thief that breaks in and steals your stuff. It's the border that gives the picture its shape.
That's a powerful visual. Without the border, the paint just spills out everywhere.
And it means nothing. If resources are infinite, they are worthless. The border creates the scarcity that creates the value. It gives the picture definition.
That really changes the perspective. It's not about morbidity, it's about definition and urgency.
Good urgency. The kind of urgency that makes you call your mom back. The kind that makes you quit the job you hate.
We're coming to the end of our deep dive, and the source leaves us with a pretty provocative closing question. It's something for you, the listener, to carry around today while you're stuck in traffic or doing the dishes.
If you know you are finite, are you living in a way that when the end comes, you won't have to apologize to yourself?
No apologies to yourself. That is a high bar, but a good one.
It's the only bar that matters.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
Take care.